in that bag again. Whoa, whoa, yeah, yeah. Hey. Back in that, yeah. Tell them to watch it. Now I ain't talking my pockets. Just know we ain't running out the way that we stock it. If I got it, you got it. If I call it, she slide and tell her to mop it. Yeah, I got that shit doing. Then she took that thing off and bring it around. Going at it till I'm on. Put that 90 in a hole. I'm beating it down. I'm back in that bag again. Whoa. Oh, say less. I'm back in that bag again. Yeah. Oh, say less. I'm back in that. Yeah. What you doing? Yeah. I'm back in that. Hey, where you going?
Hey, back in that bag again. Don't bring me around your friends. You know that I'm bagging them. Request me on Facebook, no, I ain't adding them. Positions I had her in. Hit from the back, that pussy was splattering. Calling her friend, tell her pull up. Word, let's make it a gathering. They loving that
baby,
swagger,
nah, I'm addict now, but she loving the splash again. I just be cashing in her buns, just like a wedding, I'm crashing.
I feel like this is a good intro song
I'm moving and
for
grooving.
this
She wanna
episode.
cut up, I'ma slash again. Buckets on buckets, I'm switching edition.
Between
back in my
two
back,
wrenches
back again.
podcast.
Feel like Aladdin, yeah. I'm on the carpet flying.
We had to change things up.
No talking, wow.
The coup is
Damn, my
here.
body as soon as I walk in, bitches be stalking. They loving the
Adam
drip,
Schultz,
they think I'm a force.
Cooper,
Back in my
episode 3
platform,
of
working
the
a double like I'm in
Between
the
Two Wrenches
office.
podcast. It's your first time on this show, but we've podcasted before.
We have done the pods.
We have history of podcasting and
I'm
talking.
a podcast expert guest.
Yeah, you're pretty much
2 times, I think.
When we want facts, like you're the guy we call.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Phil is like the ambiance guy. If we want with the real deal, the hard nosed stuff, we call in Adam.
I like it.
A couple of things to get to. We do want to mention our brand partners, Gel Blaster. We are excited to be hanging out with those guys coming up at Jeep Beach in Daytona Beach. Coming up in just we're like 4 weeks away from that. Last week in April, we'll be down there for the entire week. Check us out on the Facebook for all the dates and details and photos from that, as well as our Instagram page. Well, but Gel Blaster, for some reason, we ebb and flow with the Gel Blaster wars around here, and I think that's probably a good thing because you get to a point where you forget that there's randomly Gel Blasters and gellets at like pretty much every corner of the building, and someone will get a wild hair at one point of a day, and all of a sudden we're in Gel Blaster assassination mode, which is always entertaining around here.
Yeah, my daughter has a stash of about 10 of them loaded upstairs, I think, ready to go. So, little fort built.
Yeah, my kid does as well. And I was like, remember, the rule is like, don't end up with this in your backpack at school. Like, don't do any of these things. And he always ends up, I loaned it to a friend and he broke one. I'm like, I think this is just, you're conspiring to, again, compile the same amount of Gel Blasters that the kids have. A little frightening. Crown Automotive, also another brand partner of ours. We're going to be working with those guys closely as we get to Epic Willie's Adventure, which is coming up in June, which we'll mention during this podcast. Revolution Gear and Axle, Brooke Hilton is going to be a guest on the show next week's episode. So excited to talk to Brooke and all things Revolution Gear and Axle. Warren Industries, another proud brand partner of Max-Bilt Off-Road. Warren has been with us for years and years and years. Those guys, Andy and those guys are, I always love running into them at events. They always have, between them and Factor 55, they always have very interactive setups and usually really good after parties.
Yeah, very good after parties.
Yeah, if you get invited to the Warren or the Factor 55 after party,
you're in.
Yeah, the next day is a little bit rough, just speaking from experience. Speaking of experiences, the Nacho Experience, the TM5s, we put those on the Gladiator here at Max-Bilt before Phil went out to the desert earlier this year. Awesome brand, really revolutionizing the lighting industry, which is a tough nut to crack, I feel like, in the off-road industry, just because there's so many out there, but those guys are doing it right. Actually, Max-Bilt Kenny out whining and dining with the Nacho crew.
Yep. Looking to get some on the Bronc, I think.
Hey, a steak and a couple of glasses of wine. You do you business the way you got to do your business, man. And we actually just teamed up with the fine folks at iCamper. We're now a iCamper certified dealer. So if you're looking for rooftop tents or any accessories of the like that you can take out in your overlanding adventures, these guys, top notch. We met them at SEMA 2 years ago out in the overlanding section when that kind of became a really huge attraction. And man, they kind of thoroughly thought of everything when it comes to that overlanding, collapsible, easy to store, but also very user friendly.
Everything
stuff.
kind of fits together too.
Yeah. Which if you've ever overlanded for more than a weekend at Coon Fork Campground, it's nice to not have to try to refold down a chair that doesn't refold down. So Those are our brand partners for 2023. A couple of dates you have to save. Again, we talked about Jeep Beach coming up that last week in April. May 20th of 2023, Go Topless Day Cruise is coming up. Our fundraiser for Crawl for the Cure. Last year was a huge turnout. We had a great route. Ended up down in the bluffs by LaCrosse, kind of the LaCrosse area-ish, Alma.
On the Mississippi.
On the mighty Mississippi. Yep. Very cool route. A lot of Jeeps this year hoping for the same thing. And then do have to give a heads up that we will be back at Country Jam 2023 this July, and looking a little bit ahead, but we're already making plans. We hear that there's a couple of artists. I'm not sure how, I shouldn't say that. I'm pretty sure I know how rumors go around in the great city of Nashville, Tennessee. But rumors have floated around Nashville that the Max-Bilt crew could be the key to some sort of debaucherous activity. And so some of the artists who are coming to Country Jam this year already penciling us in as, hey, let's go and do a campground takeover. I've heard of this place called the Doododge Inn. If you could take me there, that would be amazing.
So, they won't be disappointed.
they will not. Hopefully, though, this time we will get them to their set on time.
Yeah, that would be good. Also, maybe have all of our crew make it instead of getting pulled over on the way.
That's right. Last year we stole LV Shane, which representing LV Shane today on the show. We stole LV Shane, and we took him to the campground at Jam. There was originally a crew of like 5. It ended up being 3 because we lost you guys for
Yeah. They made me walk. Apparently, you have to have a seat in the back of a Jeep.
You can't just crop yourself up on the tailgate.
Baloney.
No, I don't know. I feel like maybe it was the second day of Jam, so he had probably already had a good 2 full days.
Clearly, he didn't know who I was.
He did not see your name tag. No. He did not see the Max-Bilt Edition sticker. No. Nothing. So that's what's going on. Adam is again the COO of Max-Bilt Off-Road, and have been with Phil since the beginning. Is it an accurate description of your relationship?
I think. Well, yeah. I'm pretty much. I mean, since I would say the official beginning of Max-Bilt. So yeah, he kind of had the testing phase, the product, and all that was already done. All that process was finished. So I came on pretty shortly after we moved into this location. So I think that was like 2012-ish. I don't know.
But you'd known him before.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, he worked with me at Napa Auto Parts. He was a horrible employee. He wasn't that bad, but also he was pretty bad. So
how I'm interested. How does one go from being a horrible employee to he calls you up one day like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing." Doesn't this sound like a ship that's not going to run aground at all?
Yeah. Well, I had worries.
Slight concerns.
Yeah. But I guess I mean he was there for I feel like he was there for a few years, and then he left and officially started this as a full-time gig, and it was I think it was a couple of years before I jumped aboard, before he called me, because I was already coming here. I mean, pretty much every day after work anyway, and then he'd call for parts or something, and I'd be the one that he'd be talking to every day. But so yeah, I had to come down, and I'd either work on my own stuff or help out with stuff. So I was kind of here, 50% of the time already. And then, I don't know, one day he's like, well, you should come work for me. And he kept saying it. And finally he just beat it into me enough that I decided he had enough work at that point that I could, probably have a job that would pay me.
It was like a testing phase.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure if you exactly are going to be able to afford my salary or anybody's salary at this point.
Right. So, I mean, I came on, and at that point, I pretty much was like running kind of the front counter, doing all the invoicing and that sort of thing. And then that kind of transitioned in the last couple of 3 years now, where more overseeing of all the project as a whole, and then not so much on the counter, which is it's been nice because there's more projects, so it's hard to do both.
Now, do you have like a favorite part of the process? Because obviously you've wrenched plenty. You still wrench a lot. It seems like a lot more maybe on your own stuff than it is getting out there and working on a customer's project. But from the wrenching to the kind of product design to really build design, like do you have a favorite, or do they all kind of equally fit into the piece of pie that is the day to day around here?
I like certain parts of all of it, I guess. Design is always cool. You get to talk about what someone wants or help them come up with an idea, or something like that. That's really fun. And then I enjoy figuring out the issues as we go along. I feel like that's kind of my role here. If if there's a problem or fire, I'm the guy to
He's the guy.
deal with
He's the
that.
only guy with the fire extinguisher in his office.
Yeah.
Strange.
So, I do like that. Although sometimes there's many of those fires at one time. So, that's hard, but, I enjoy it. So I think that's probably why I'm still here.
Yeah. The design part is always fascinating to me just because they're, the lay person, the normal person that doesn't think that something is possible.
Right.
I have a, whatever that vehicle has to be, whether it's like an old Cherokee Chief, it's just an old Cherokee Chief. I couldn't have this custom thing done to it, or couldn't have this custom interior, couldn't have these, these pieces and parts that aren't supposed to fit together. So that part of the process for you is always fascinating to me, because you do get to kind of design it so that anything can really work together.
Right. Yep. Yeah. When you do put a newer engine in an older vehicle, resto mod, they call that or whatever.
Yeah.
But, that kind of stuff where you can make something work in a vehicle that really isn't supposed to be working in there, that's really cool. But sometimes that you just can't do that.
It just doesn't work.
Tell people that you just can't do that.
Sorry.
If you have enough money, you can do anything. But
that's, I
most
feel like
of the time,
I feel like that's
what kind of hinders the custom stuff sometimes.
Across the board.
Just,
yeah. We can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. It's going to be very expensive.
A couple more zeros on the end of that budget.
Yeah.
And that's, do you have a preference? A lot of it just because the Max-Bilt, I'm going to say the Max-Bilt way, but there's always an element of bringing the old stuff back to life. Obviously, that's where Epic Willys Adventure gets tied in. That's where a lot of these builds that we find at places like SEMO, where guys like, wow, I have, a couple of years ago we had the blue Chief that was out there, the Levi's Edition Chief, and a gentleman come up and he was like, I have one of these sitting behind my ranch, in Carlsbad, New Mexico. So you kind of have the inspiration of bringing older stuff back to life in whatever manner that happens to be. Obviously, with the Levi's Edition Chief, it was really bringing something that you could throw a football through, back into something that, is roadworthy, trail-worthy. He's brought that thing out to Moab and trailed it many other places. But do you have a preference whether it's working on, restoring something old or modifying something new? Do you lean one way in which, kind of helps you sleep better at night?
Yeah, I'm definitely an old school guy. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's all I have. My own personal stuff. I think, actually my newest vehicle at all that I own is like a 2005. And that's including all my daily driver stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like new stuff. So I like everything old. I bought a house that's from 1850. We have an antique business. I like old stuff. So, I would rather pick up an old vehicle that, whether it's a total piece of crap or something clean, either way. And then get that working again. I like that. I like when you can repurpose stuff too. So, like my Willys, I have all kinds of weird things that are, a cow drinking cup for a speaker, different stuff like that.
Right.
I like doing that.
Did you feel like it's more challenging with the older stuff? Obviously it is, simply because of the fact that the actual parts that you need to make it, to maintenance it are a little more difficult to find. But obviously the parts are a little more simplistic than they are when you talk about the 2023s or the new, 392 JLs or things like that. So is the challenge lie more in working on the old stuff, or is it in, kind of the new things where you have to take off 14 covers to find the 13th battery on the 17th step of the 14th building?
I think they both have different challenges. The new stuff is it's almost sometimes really hard to make something fit on a new vehicle that's not supposed to, because of the electronics now. I mean, it's crazy the amount of electronics they have. So an older one, obviously, you don't have to worry about electronics typically at all. But then a lot of the older stuff, they don't make the part. So you either have to fix it or fit something else in its place. So there's a different challenge there, I think. But again, they're both fun to do. If you can make a electronic work that's not supposed to fit on a vehicle. I mean, that's sometimes more challenging than the older stuff. So it's fun to do that.
I remember being out at the North Rim of the Grand Canyon with Phil on a 4 exploring trip almost a year ago this time, and there was the mechanical failure with the Gladiator, and I remember them unwiring 3 batteries, and there's still electrical current somehow. They're all trying to figure out, like, well, where's the 4th battery on this thing? Trying to figure that out. When you pull the plug on a battery on even mine, I have an 09. That's the show. There's no more juice running to it. Just strange challenges that they, for the better. So you have bigger screens and.
Yeah, some of that is kind of, I don't. Yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, it's fun to have that stuff, but man, it's just painful sometimes to work on.
Well, I know, like Kenny, who we mentioned earlier. Kenny's got the Ford Lightning.
Yep.
He got the electric F-150, and it's like getting into a rocket ship.
Yeah, shuttle.
It has
for sure.
it has the screen, much like the Teslas have the giant display screen in the middle. The hands-free driving. It doesn't make a noise. It's like 0 to 60 in like 4 seconds. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel earthly.
Yep.
But that's all electricity. That's all
and it
battery.
Has a frunk.
Yeah.
That's which is weird.
The front end trunk.
Yeah. You push a button and it opens. It's just odd to me.
Yeah, and not like Ferrari frunk, where it was like, you open the hood of the Ferrari. Well, this is where you put your stuff because the engine's in the back. No, there's just no
engine.
There's just no engine. Just more batteries.
That's a fun truck. I don't know if that's for me, but I mean, they have their place. I think it's really cool. I like that electric stuff is becoming more appealing. I mean, I look at it like, I can make my Cherokee Chief electric or something. I'm not looking to buy a Lightning, but I maybe rob some parts off one or something in a junkyard maybe someday.
Once the battery, you have to replace a $23,000 battery. They're just going to be parts.
Yeah, exactly.
Left over there. I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about this crazy idea out there that NASCAR F1 could go with electric cars, and they were talking about, imagine being at a NASCAR race, something that the idea that was basically born from moonshiners, racing, away from the authorities to try to get booze from one place to another. All of a sudden, there's just no noise. You just hear the crowd, and you hear, man, there's going to be some rubber squealing on the asphalt, but just silence. I'm like, that is the least redneck thing that you could possibly do in that world.
Yeah, I see Alter 4 is attempting an electric class as well. So same concept there. It's like, man, I mean, it's cool. You still get to go up in the rocks and stuff, but like part of it is you get to like listen to the engine. I mean, that's pretty cool.
And how do you know if like something's usually finding out when something's wrong is like, that tick sounds a little bit different than
probably
it should.
hear the ticks easier if you don't have to hear the engine, maybe.
Well, there's probably a monitor for it. It just comes up on your giant screen like, it looks like
Google glasses or something, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get the Ray-Ban editions. Those are.
Yep.
I'm crazy. It's crazy that we haven't figured out the flux capacitor yet. We've got electric cars. We can't figure out how to go back in time yet.
It's coming.
Doc Brown, get us back. Having a chance to obviously be a part of Max-Bilt for as long as you have, and the travels that go along with it, and the events that go along with it, places like Easter Jeep Safari or Jeep Invasion or all of them across the country. We talked about Jeep Beach, which we'll be at in a couple weeks here. Do you have a favorite place in? We'll keep it in the continental United States. A favorite place to go when you talk about wheeling or events, or maybe they're a combination of both.
Event with wheeling would be Easter Jeep Safari.
Yeah.
Moab's pretty iconic for that. I now have a vehicle that's a little more capable. So in the past, haven't been on a lot of the tougher trails there so much. I mean, riding, but not driving. So I'm looking forward to my next trip being able to do some more of that. But as far as like destination, Silverton, Ouray, Colorado area is the top of the list for me. I actually have really only done one Jeep trip there, but more ATV, motorcycle. We did a ton of that. A really good friend of mine, actually, we would drive a deuce and a half from here to there. We did that every year for, I think, 6 or 7 years. It feels like forever. And we would load a couple of quads. And we first started with a couple quads in the back. And then we took 2 quads and 2 road bikes. And then more people started wanting to join for some ridiculous reason, because also that vehicle does 40, 50 miles an hour max.
Right.
And then, we ended up with, I think we had like 6 people. So we had 4 quads on the truck, and then we had a trailer that would hold 2 or 4 more, all our gear, and we'd all ride in this Deuce, and travel at 40 to 50 miles an hour across the country. And we'd get out and drive it right up into the mountains and camp up in the mountains then. And we'd stay there for a week or 2 and just wheel and camp. So I guess it's early overlanding, except we didn't really have much gear. It's mostly just carrying our vehicles on a vehicle to get there. But that's a really beautiful area. It's awesome. If you've never been, that is number 1. Got to go.
So it seems like you've traveled, I mean, given this particular trip that you're talking about, multiple trips on that, and Epic Willie's Adventure, you really do get a chance to see the country at 40 miles an hour and slower. This has kind of been your forte for X amount of years.
Yeah, I would say, between those trips, they're just as far as the Epic trip. So, a couple thousand miles there and back. And I've probably done 10, 12 of them. It's pretty cool though to go that slow. You just see so much more stuff. You get off the interstate, you get to meet people, or even that vehicle breaks down all the time. So you're relying on
it's a trend here.
Yep, some guy at a service station, or Joe Blow's farm because he broke something. You get to meet people that way. That's really cool. I think that those trips for sure. That's one of the highlights. I think is you just meet better people. I feel like when you get off the interstate, like you go to a gas station at the interstate, and those people see 10,000 people a day. The last thing they want to do is see one more.
Right.
Or
have a conversation with them. Let me tell you about the local tavern that you have to go get a burger at.
Yeah. You're off the highway. That guy hasn't seen anyone for weeks, so he's really excited. So you get to talk to a lot more people. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's fun.
I think realizing that, being a part of just one Epic so far, and then we'll talk about kind of the origin story of Epic, because I know that was a conversation that you and Phil were having that kind of spawned the entire idea. But that, when you know that you can't go any faster than 40 miles an hour, you really embrace that travel in a completely different way than a normal, we need to get, it's the kids' weekend at the Dells. We have to get to the Dells, man. If we leave now, we can get there by X time, going 75, 80 miles an hour and down the interstate. When you don't have that capability and you're stuck at this rate, you really observe outside of the state of Nebraska. Sorry, until you get to the western part of the state. You really observe those small towns and the water towers and the love letters that are painted on the underpass and all those things that you don't get a chance to see when you're flying down the interstate, or more so these days driving to the airport, getting on an airplane and flying to your destination.
Yeah, and I think too, you're stopping so much more frequently with those too. You really don't. You can only go 150 miles at the most, typically, or 100 miles, and so you stop at all these spots and you get to see all these little things. Every town has its little community museum or something.
Right.
We stopped at however many different things like that, little attractions on the side, mainly because you're already stopped. So you just walk across the street and you go read that plaque or whatever, where normally you'd just be fly by, never even look at it. And that's neat. You get to learn a lot more about the area that you're driving through, where typically it's gone in half a second and you're moved on.
Yeah, you find that a lot more, especially in what they call the flyover states. If you fly coast to coast, or you fly here to down south or here to out west, you fly over a lot of those Midwestern states. And obviously there's metropolitan areas in there that there are reasons to go to, whether it's St. Louis or anywhere in the Midwest where you have a larger city, Kansas City. But when you drive through those smaller towns that are in between point A and point B, you really find out how much space we have in this country, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
And also how kind people are, and how the root of America is still breaking down on the side of the road and meeting somebody, or being at a gas station and talking to the attendant. They're like, oh, have you seen this place? We experienced that on our last epic trip, we met a guy. Maybe it was questionable that we followed his lead at a certain grocery store towards the end. But he had a dog that looked like it needed some food. He looked like he needed some food. He was like, I have the best camping spot for you guys.
Yeah.
And here he is leading us out to what we presumed
The
was
middle of
was-
nowhere.
I'm like, this is where we die. Have you seen where the hills have eyes? This is where we die. But we found this incredible camping location.
It was one of the best of the trip.
It really was a cool place. But that's how you find these things is talking to people. And that only happens when you actually get out. And, well, for us and the way we travel, you break down in their town and then they tell you where to go because you can't go much further.
Yeah, trusting someone like that is interesting.
Yeah.
He did not seem like someone that you'd want to follow out. And, we were a ways out there.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know,
20 miles
at
maybe.
least. I mean, and you're well out of cell range and well out of anything. And then when we got to the campsite, you turned down yet another smaller dirt road to like this small little cutout of trees where who knows who could be waiting on the other side of them.
This is all part of some master scheme. But after like an hour, you realize this guy is probably not planning any masterful theft. His friends are not like, I'm going to get these guys.
No, he just saw that we like to party, and he likes to party.
He does. He likes the brown liquor.
Yeah,
which is cool. Epic Willie's Adventure is what we're kind of referencing, and there's so many tales from that. It could have almost its own podcast. But Epic started, was it a conversation between you and Phil? Like, hey, you guys have old Jeeps. You wanted to make this trip out to Moab. Like, how did it all come into be? Not what it is today.
So it kind of leads back to the Deuce trips a little bit. So myself, Mark, and Phil were here at the shop back when this building that our office building now was the shop. And we had taken those Deuce trips many times. And I had bought my 53 3A, and I had just gotten it going. And we were talking like, we should drive this thing. Let's drive them to Moab, because I think it was a Jeep's 75th anniversary that year. And we decided that we were going to create an event and go and drive Willie's Jeeps to Jeep anniversary. I was the only one that had one at that time. So everyone else had to go and find them and buy them and get them ready to go. And we just went with it, and it just kept growing. I think, I want to say we had 8 or 9 that year. I can't remember. Maybe it was more than that, but it turned into a huge thing. And actually it turned into a really huge thing when on the first day, 60 miles into the trip, I blew up my engine, and we ended up running into someone on the side of the road, and they took us to their house, let us use all their tools. Their friend came, he drove us all around, got us parts, food. I mean, they gave us canned food to take along. We ended up finding an engine, pulling it out, putting a new one in, started it up, and it had a knock within the driveway. And so then I unloaded all my stuff, put it all in Tyler's Jeep, and then I was co-pilot for the rest of the trip. But, that person that picked us up and drove us around was Pat. Yeah. And that's how we met Pat.
Pat Peterson, yep.
Yep, and Pat has been on the last 2 epics after that, and super great friend of ours now. But that's like lifelong meeting of someone there,
Yeah.
And that trip was awesome. That was a really good trip.
It's those things that people just don't do. Like people don't, even if it's not even an old vehicle, that you are pretty sure at some point in its lifetime, this juncture of its lifetime, it's not meant to go from Wisconsin to Moab. But let's see what happens. Let's push it, and we'll figure it out along the way. People don't like taking their 2-year-old vehicle across the country because they're like, man. And if they do break down, they got AAA. They got their insurance guy. They got the TechNet program. They have somebody to come and service it. They're not out making friends.
No.
alongside of the road. And so what makes it so special is because after the last one I went on, I had somebody, a friend of a friend was like, what you guys doing is amazing, but why? Like, why? Why put yourself in a position where you're sleeping on the side of the road or sleeping in a state park, or if something breaks down, you're just stuck there. And it's not like we'll just run down to the local auto parts store because chances are they have this part. A lot of it is,
they're not going to have
a little bit of
most of the time.
It's a little bit of
us.
ditch ingenuity.
Yeah.
Like, if we tape this up or we wire this or put 14 bolts into this wheel, like it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Also change these trips. The more of these you go on, you almost get like hardened to the fact that, you know, if you break down, you just know that you'll be able to figure it out. Yeah. So, you know, I can't tell you how many times since these trips where we're doing something and we're like, well, whatever, we'll figure it out.
Right.
We've done it before, you know, we broke down how many times, it doesn't matter. Even in a new car, you know, I look at my vehicles now, it's just like, well, I'll just fix it if it breaks and I'll just keep going. It's not, I don't know. If you can figure it out, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But like the way people are nowadays, they couldn't fix anything, half of them, you know. So it's really hard to imagine how you would even do anything if you broke. You know, they can't figure it out. They don't know what to do.
It feels like if somebody got in that precarious situation where you're stranded on the side of the road, maybe you're close to the middle of nowhere, but there's like a house up in the distance. Like that's how horror movies start for people. Like that's the fear is like, I'm going to go to this house and this guy's going to be like really super nice. And all of a sudden, like we're in his basement, he's got chainsaws, you know, and then shit just goes awry real quick. That's the mentality of somebody when they break down, where even I noticed it on the Oregon Trail trip. There's a little bit of anger because you were like, man, like I thought I had that dialed in.
Yep.
But there's not an overwhelming like pseudo-typical movie scene where, you know, a car is overheating and you see, you know, dad jumps out and he's kicking the hood and he's pissed and, you know, how are we going to get this fixed? Like there's like a very calm tone amongst everybody when something breaks down. It's like, well, I guess we got to diagnose this, figure out what it is and how we're going to get it from, you know, point A to point B. A lot of ingenuity.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you're traveling in such a big group with so many people that, you know, in general, like really could fix just about anything.
Like-minded individuals. Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of have that in the back of your mind, like, well, okay, you know, so-and-so's here and at least they'll be able to help me do this or something. And it's kind of interesting how everyone will just jump right in no matter what. If, you know, this guy breaks down, it doesn't matter if you're not in his vehicle or with him driving, you're going to help him out. So we work as a team a lot doing that. So I think that's really cool too, is, you know, it's just a big, huge family of people traveling down the road.
Right. Somebody's got a tool that you don't have, or somebody's, you know, got a 10 mil and they can't find their own. It's things like that come across. And it's, you are not only obviously mechanically inclined. So if something does break down, you tend to be one of the guys that people go to if they're lacking in a little bit of knowledge, but also if they're having repeat issues and they need a voodoo doll created. Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know where, is there like a certain, like a shaman that you went and saw? Because on the course of like the 5 years that I've known you, I've never seen anybody in my existence of 43 years make as many voodoo dolls as you have made in your life.
I guess, I don't know. I was born in Louisiana, so maybe that's part of my blood.
There's voodoo that it's from the roots. It's from the dirt.
I don't know. I guess I just made one and it worked. They made it through. So I'm making them. That's what I do now. They got a problem, big problem. You know, you can't just make them for every little problem. It's got to be like a serious problem.
I love how it was just like the next logical step. Like, well, this is kind of screwed. What should we do? Well, I have an idea. Let's make this voodoo doll for the guy that sold you this motor because, well, screw him. And it all came to a happenstance at that point.
Yeah, they finished that trip.
Yeah.
So I think it worked.
I think it did.
I don't know what happened to the guy that built the motor for him. I mean, hopefully he's still around.
We don't have confirmation that he's still in
Powerful voodoo
existence.
doll,
Yeek. But we are going back on an epic number 4 is going to be coming up here in June. Very excited that this year, for the first time, it's opened up to the public. So obviously there's a lot of like-minded individuals when you talk about the family, the group that we've discussed going on the trip beforehand. But as we have gone out and as you've gone out, like they're everywhere. I mean, there's flat fender groups, there's old Billy's groups, there old iron groups that are all across the country. So we opened this epic trip up to those who have the the mindset that taking a couple of weeks off of their lives and trying to travel out east in Old Willie's was a great idea. So we opened that up to the public for the first time this year. We're starting and ending at Bantam Jeep Heritage Fest this year, so we're going to have our own encampment, which is going to be super cool. This has a different feel to it this year, just with the way that it's kind of laying itself out.
I think that it's really cool to be starting at Bantam. I think that's going to be really neat. And that show is just filled with people, freaks of the Willis, you know?
Yeah.
So it's going to be really neat, especially to be like camped there, you know? It'll be like almost like a zoo exhibit, I'm sure. So
now, hang on, I got to put a note down. We got to make do not feed, or actually feed the animals.
Yes.
It's okay to feed the animals through the plate glass.
Please feed the animals.
And have kids throwing little breadcrumbs at us and stuff. Yeah.
I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
And they're just like all about it, Bantam show. That's also really neat. It's really cool too, because like, you talk to so many people that on the road even, or after the event on Instagram or whatever, wherever you end up, that do follow us, and they're just like so excited. I watched you do this, so I got mine running, and I took it across and did this, or whatever. They make their own trip. That's really cool too.
Yeah.
So it is kind of neat that this time we're going to be able to bring along some people that are that excited about it.
Yeah.
Which will be fun to like share it a little bit.
Yeah, because I think there's the Willis enthusiasts, the Willis freaks, which I think we should get put on T-shirts and sell at Bantam. Willis freak, but there's the enthusiast for the vehicle itself, but then there's also this sense of adventure and this sense of going out and doing abnormal things that do put you, as much as we've kind of talked about how there's not an overreaction to a breakdown or situations or camaraderie amongst the drivers. It happens. There is a willingness to go and like sleep in a ditch if you have to, or not know. Like we talked about finding, rough and tumble guy at the grocery store, and he took us out to a weird place. There's a certain, nobody does this sense of adventure, obviously why the word adventure is in there. So to bring somebody who's just an enthusiast about the vehicle itself, be like, oh, also we're going 1,500 miles in 7 days, in questionable terrain and all the stipulations of, no cell phones and no GPS and no highway travel. So just taking away all the modern conveniences that everybody has. Also, having the Concord Cup, which is the prize of all prizes, the coup d'etat of this trip, which will be handed out a week from the end of Bantam. So that'll be super exciting. And the rusty trombone gets to get back out on the road.
Yep. It'll be, trip number 4 for that. The first one I'll count. I mean, it still made the trip.
You did make the trip.
Yeah, I went in its place.
Yep.
But, I keep saying it's going to be the last one. It's going to be the last one for it. But when it's still going, it's hard to not bring them along.
And when you realize the amount of extra effort on top of the normal day-to-day stuff and the other vehicle projects that you have and family and work, like adding another element in when it's like, but I mean, she's ready to. I mean, the same thing with Phil and Amos. It's like, well, we made it. We barely made it. Amos barely made it. We were one big bump away from not making it with a rear axle on the last epic. So hopefully we get that squared away before the next one. But
I'm sure a couple weeks before we leave, it'll be ready to
go. The week before, the weekend before we depart for Butler. Will be when
if there wasn't an epic where at least half of the vehicles were literally driving out of the shop to go on the trip, I don't think it would be the same. There's so many where it's like we start the engine for the first time hours before we leave.
When are we leaving? 4:00. Oh, okay. Better probably get this out of the.
I mean, that's ended badly also, but it's usually that way.
That's what we kind of talked about. We had some meetings about Epic, and we were talking about having a new group of people that are not really in our personal circle coming into it. And we're like, well, breakdowns and stuff. I'm like, these people probably have had their willies dialed in for a year.
Yeah.
So they're going to be just fine. It's going to be the normal crew of miscreants that's going to be like, oh, it's just us holding up the tail end.
Yeah,
back
we'll
here
make it the adventure, right?
A breakdown.
Yep.
So
they'll get to see what it's like third hand, I guess. Or
I'll show you the footage after the fact.
Yeah.
We'll be in the back of the race. So we talked the rusty trombone, which is your Willis. Do you have a favorite of all the vehicles in your arsenal right now? Do you currently have a favorite? Or do they all run an equal playing field?
No, my newest one, the Chief. I have 78 Chief that I just got finished. That's my favorite. Yeah.
Chief Wampum.
Chief Wampum.
Chief Wampum.
Yep, that's the name.
Hashtag Chief Wampum on the
Yeah,
Instagram.
I don't know if I have that yet, but I'll do that now. That was really fun because I'd been kind of dreaming or planning that sort of a build for years, and I just never committed to do it. And I think Phil, I don't remember exactly how it went down, but he basically told one of our sponsors or someone that they're like, oh, well, we're going to have the Chief there, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so he drug it out of the weeds, I think. And he's like, well, we'll just start on it. And I'm like, okay, so here we go. But we got it done. Took it to Moab. I think was the first trip for it.
Yeah. I remember being drugged through the parking lot with the forklift.
Yeah. With nothing under
nothing
it. Just
under
the
it.
body.
Just the body.
Yeah. It's still a work in progress, but it's a work in progress now. So.
Yeah, because it kind of ruled the roost at Moab. I mean, it was doing all the trails and making all the.
Yep. And I've made some changes since then. So I wish I was able to go this year. I'm not going to be able to go, but that'll keep going. So I've got time.
Yeah.
I think it turned out really well. It turned out exactly the way they wanted it. And I'm excited to keep adding to it over the years. I kind of collect, I don't really get rid of them, so it'll stick around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's now you got space. You got that new house with all the room and stuff.
Yep. So that'll be we'll add it to the storage building and bring it out a couple times and beat it up.
Is there a vehicle that you've had in your grasp, in your possession, in your life that you regret having let go? My dad always used to talk about he had like a 60-something Mustang or Corvette. I don't remember specifically what it was, but it was like I had this golden Mustang and it was beautiful, and then I needed beer money, so I sold it. Something silly like that. So that always recollects with like having a vehicle that you're like, oh, that's the one I maybe should have held on to.
Yeah. My high school vehicle was a '85 Chevy Silverado, 2-wheel drive, and I wish I saw. I had it for a really long time, and it got to the point where it was just in the weeds, sitting there, and like it was just too far gone.
Yeah.
So I scrapped it. But even then, I was like, I should have kept it, because at that point in my life, I didn't know.
You didn't know what really
much.
far gone looked,
and I didn't
looked
know
like.
what really far gone was. Right?
Seen really far gone now.
Yeah, I'm sure someone probably picked it out of the scrapyard and it's probably driving around, because it wasn't that bad.
Right. Hindsight.
Yeah. But that's definitely one that I'm on the look for. Yeah. It's going to have to be the same. It was tan on tan. It would be the exact same truck if I could find another one.
Nice. And then we talked about breakdowns with Epic Willie's Adventure, but anytime that you're in an industry or have a lifestyle that forces you to travel in strange ways, like traveling by vehicle is less than it used to be, because there is ways to get from here to anywhere in a very short period of time when we talk air travel. But there always is, and Phil's talked about it. We had Dennis Wood from Terraflex was on. He talked about some of his travel challenges. I know you've experienced things in your many, many miles that you put on across the country that you're like, oh, well, that was memorable.
Yeah. Most of them probably involve our top kick, which is a love-hate relationship with that vehicle. It seems like it's like you'll be driving along and all of a sudden there you are on the side of the interstate with either a flat tire or a oil leak or a catastrophic diesel leak or something. And
I love it when it happens when you're coming down the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
When it
Or
happens.
trying to go up.
Or trying
actually. Yeah.
yeah, going up it.
Yeah. It was that was the last time I think
Yeah.
I drove it. So yeah. I don't know. That vehicle seems to be like so many highs and really lows.
Yeah.
But there's just so many that I feel like are just minor things, you know, like that really in reality are minor, you know. I think there's been 3 or 4 times we're coming back from Easter Jeep Safari, and it's always on Sunday, Easter Sunday. You're coming back. It's, you know, 2:00 in the morning, and blow a tire.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't have a spare for that. So then you're waiting at some truck stop for some, you know, Joe Bob to come unlock the tire shop, and I don't know, it just feels like you're never going to get home, and then finally it's back up and going, and you're taking off down the road again. But I'm trying to think of something earlier, and I'm sure there's so many, but
those drives are always exhausting though. Anytime you're coming back, especially when you talk Moab or that southwest part of the country, that drive back, because there's places where there's real long stretches of not a whole lot. We got stuck coming back from our northern rim of the Grand Canyon trip, going through Ghost Pass, we found out it's called, after the fact, where it's like, I don't know, 221 miles between gas stations.
Oh, yeah.
And not just gas stations, civilization, any other human beings besides those who are traveling. But there's those things. And usually when you're on a trip, whether it's EJS or it's, you know, a week-long excursion or any event, it's been a long, you've probably partaken in some festivities. Your sleep probably hasn't been as on point as you like it to be. That trip back is just like
brutal. It goes forever.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone else has talked about it either, but you know, I'm a driver. I don't like to drive passenger. I like to drive, and I will drive the whole way. You know, I would rather just drive. So I do get to the point where it's like, I'm going to pull over now. When I'm to that point, then that is the end. I will not go 10 more feet. I will be sleeping.
We're done now.
Yes. So, I know exactly what you're talking about, where you put toothpicks in your eyes and you stare off at the distance, and there's no lights, there's no nothing. And all you want to do is get home.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it never ends.
You realize you're in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And you're like, our eyes are crossed.
Yeah, you don't look at the GPS, because then it tells you how long you have until you exit the state. Yeah, and it's like eternity. Those are fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and you never end up like in a, during the daylight hours, I feel like you find those quaint little towns that are, you know, real homey, and, the Mom's Cafe is real nice. When you're driving at night, there's always a tendency that you end up in some shithole town with a very sketchy truck stop at the edge in the outskirts. And you're like, well, if I don't sleep now, we're going to die. So you end up sleeping, but you don't really sleep, because you're like, also,
I might get shot.
This is where it ends. Either I die in a tragic accident on the side of the road, or they make a movie out of my life from what happened at this truck stop.
And those are the places where you can't use the bathroom either, because you will definitely get some sort of disease.
Yes.
Yeah, terrible. All
Slow
you want to
death.
do is wash your face, but yet you can't touch the sink handles because they're just so gross.
Yeah, you're like, if I go into this, truck stop and buy some gloves and some sanitation wipes,
I'll clean the bathroom for you if I can use it.
Yeah. I'll pay you. I'll pay you to use that key on the outside door bathrooms. Those are the ones where, or there's like a hubcap attached to it. Yeah, I feel like there was a couple New Mexico gas stations that we stopped at where that was the case.
I feel like that, maybe that's a new goal, is to, document the worst bathrooms on the road. I think there's a show dedicated to that. Oh my gosh.
There was a band, I can't remember the name of the band off the top of my head. It was a rock band. I've spent 20 years in radio, so I always used to hear the ins and outs of their travels, because that's all. I mean, we talk about our travels. These band guys, especially the ones that are just up and coming, that's all they drive their, POS Sprinter van with, broken axles, from everywhere. But they were on a long tour. It was like, I don't remember how many dates in a row, but they were doing an online critique of every venue, every festival, every fair, every gas station's bathroom. And they were doing like a scale of one to craptastic or something along those lines. So I definitely feel like with upcoming travels that we have, whether it's going down to Jeep Beach or it is our travels on Epic 4 that's coming up, there should be some sort of like point system or star system. Maybe that's part of the, Concord Cup is going to be part based on time and part based on points. Maybe you get the worst bathroom that you use, you get 10 points.
Yeah, exactly.
Was
you have
there
to
a
complete
hubcap?
the rating scale, And then the last question is, did you use it?
Yeah. Did you have to hover?
Yeah, did you walk out? Yeah, because that, oh man. I think it was North Dakota somewhere, and it was a Love's, which nothing against certain brands, but let me tell you, Love's typically doesn't have the greatest bathrooms, I don't think. It was horrible. The gas station really didn't look that bad. So I was like, oh, this will be okay. And I go in, and I think actually Tyler was there too. And we were both racing to see who could get to the bathroom first. And we walk in, and there was like 5 stalls, and they had all been destroyed, overflowing on the walls. I mean, it was terrible. It's so much to the point where I'm like, okay, I left the bathroom. I walked up to the front counter, and I'm like, look, you need to send someone into your bathroom to clean it. It's not even usable. Tyler is basically throwing up. If you know Tyler, that doesn't take much, but he walked in, gagged like 5 times, and left. And the woman at the counter said, yeah, we've had a few complaints. Our cleaner guy is on vacation. Oh. And I'm like, well, like, what do you mean? Like, you don't have anyone to clean the bath? Well, he's gone for a couple days. He's been gone for a couple days. And I'm like, you don't have a backup plan. You just let it build up. The guy's going to come back and quit.
Then
no one's
really
going to clean
that.
that. It would take a fire hose. It was terrible.
Bringing the hazmat team to clean
she
this
just
up.
was like, didn't care. She's like, oh, yeah, well, he's gone. Nobody's going to clean it. Sorry. You're going to have to go next door.
I feel like that woman has never been in a real bathroom emergency situation. You know, like she's never felt the pressure of like, I'm going to die. I'm either going to blow up or I'm going to catch some, non-curable disease from this bathroom right here. Come on, lady.
Yeah, it was so bad.
Oh, I think, we're definitely writing down the bathroom point system on that, because I feel like I've never traveled that much out in that part of the country where we're going to. Butler, Pennsylvania, obviously the birthplace of Jeep, is where we started at Bantam Jeep Heritage Fest, but then up into New York and upstate New York and into New Hampshire, like all the states up in the New England area, down through Boston, back in Pennsylvania. Like, it'll be interesting to see how. I know what out west is like.
Yeah,
I definitely know what the restrooms out west are like. I'll be interested to see if there's just a notable, a different take on.
Yeah,
on
I haven't been over that way a whole lot. I mean, Butler is about the extent. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I haven't really traveled in that area at all, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Max-Bilt bathroom reviews.
Yeah, there's something to that. I think we could do it.
I feel like that's the thing. I do want to talk a little bit about some things that you have going on, because I always enjoy the part of our day when we talk about cocktails, because those are some of my favorite things in life, are cocktails. You've become kind of this craft cocktail connoisseur. You got the smoker thing, and you're following a bunch of people on TikTok.
Yep.
And
I'm learning. I'm early learning, so I'm no expert.
But have you discovered in your newfound desire to become a craft cocktailologist, whatever the technical term is?
I'm not sure, but that's okay.
I feel like ologist is somewhere
ologist,
in there. Have you? What's like? Where are you at right now? Like, what is your favorite that you've been blending up at home?
I've been doing a lot of like sours, like whiskey sour or bourbon. I like bourbon, so I've been playing around with that. I'm excited to get it to be a little bit warmer outside, so maybe some daiquiris or something of that sort. But at the new house, I've got a room now. Right now, it's filled with stuff, like moving in. That I'm gonna have a bar there. So I'm I don't know, fun little hobby, I guess. But I'm just getting started, so I get to order the stuff, all the little things.
I know, because you say them out loud, and my phone must pick them up. Because all of a sudden you were talking about the smoke thing that you have, where you light the wood chips on and it smokes the drink.
Yep.
All of a sudden I got 15 different ads in my feed that are like, oh, you probably want one of these. I'm like, well, I I probably do.
Yeah. Oh, you do.
Yeah. I feel like I need to add it to my repertoire.
Yep. And I whisper in your phone when you're not looking too, so don't be surprised if other things show up.
So we can sit down and have a review of like, hey, did you try the cherry wood? Because that one was a little different taste to it.
Yeah, it's neat. That's like a whole culture there. But I follow a couple different people.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing. Not that it comes with age, but it comes with becoming more of a drink connoisseur, because before, whatever, like pour some bourbon into a glass, maybe put ice on it, maybe don't. Maybe it depends on the day. It depends on how I'm feeling.
Vodka, Kool-Aid. Right.
This is WAP. I mean, whatever. Like throw everything but the kitchen sink in there. Vodka, anything. That's fine. But now it's like, if I'm going to enjoy this,
well,
there's
there's
take
something
15, 20 minutes to do it.
Right. Exactly. I was just going to say the same thing. Where like you actually have to like create the drink. So, for a while it's like, well, I don't want to mix all. It takes too long to mix all that stuff together, and then you get one little drink, and then, but you like enjoy it more. It takes longer to make it, so it's like a whole process. So it's kind of fun. And
there's pre-work to do too. Like if the ice cubes, do you have the sphere? Do you have the square? There's a guy who chisels them down. He's got the big square and he takes the ice pick. Very basic instinct style. So much prep to go into making a cocktail, but
all that is fun too. I don't know. I have a few different cubes, but I haven't done the big one, the big block yet. I'm scared of the ice pick. I feel like I'm the guy that's going to stab myself in the hand or something, and then I'll have to get surgery or.
That was the first thing I thought of when I saw that guy just taking that big, big square, and he's just stabbing himself right in the hand. I'm like, this is where I bow out.
Yeah.
I'll let somebody else do that hard work.
Yeah, there's probably some safety thing you're supposed to wear or something, some special glove, maybe.
some steel glove, like a knight in the Awesome. Well, Adam Schultz, the COO of Max-Bilt Off-Road, we've gone an hour. I feel like we've covered all the bases.
I think so.
Feel good about.
I feel pretty good.
Where we're at.
I think so.
Exciting.
Well, we covered my whole life, so.
Wait, back to the 80s when I was born. Vehicles that I've had since then. You can listen to our podcast on all the major podcast platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, the iHeart Radio app, and also if you're watching this, you're watching it on YouTube or on Facebook. So wherever you're at, make sure you follow, subscribe, share it with your friends, make this a part of your podcast album library.
Yeah,
things that you constantly listen to.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Let's see if we can find some cool out music here. Oh, I like this.
Do it.
It's a good way to go out. Thanks, y'all.
Like a Mordecai, I ain't regular, feel like Jordan wearing 45. Traumatized, victimized, seen some of my die. Knock you off a base with a bat when them niggas slide. Homicide, genocide, televised, emphasize, perpetuating war. Tell that nigga he gon' pick a side. Hood ties from hood lines, now nigga doing dope lines. Don't run into the cops, that's a big exercise. Don't run into the cops, that's the motto. I don't see it coming to an end like legato. Get chipped like staccato, send a wave through the hood, now sounding like